Is sampling cheating? Now I'm going to bundle like loops, recording from vinyl, or from YouTube, or from an outside source, sample packs. Are these things cheating? Timberland in one of his live talks was talking about whether sampling was cheating, and I did like his explanation, whether he thought it was cheating or not. Sampling is an art form in itself. It's a skill set. That's kind of pretty much what Timberland was saying. Like, it's his own skill set, so it's not an easy way to make tracks, so to speak. It's really just a whole different skill set than playing your own instruments. You know, especially when you're talking about sampling from vinyl, it kind of gives you a way to collaborate with artists that you never could before. I call it a collaboration, not so much cheating. To me, cheating would be is if I sampled a guitar loop or a guitar riff and then I told everybody I played it. Now that's cheating, because you're misleading people thinking that you can play the guitar and you can't. If I hired a guitarist to come in and I asked them to play, let's say, a jazz loop or a jazz riff, and they play it, but then I tell them, can you play it 2 semitones higher than when you played it? And then they play it, I record it, and we collaborate on a song. It's the same thing with sampling. It's basically you're collaborating with that person that's on the record, but then you manipulate it to fit what you're doing. It's kind of the same idea as collaborating with a real person, except now you have to do it in your software. You can't just tell them what you want to play. And there are a lot of producers that produce that way, who never play any instruments. They just tell the people what they want, and then they put it all together. So really, when you're sampling, you're more of a producer than a musician. Now, sampling from record versus using loops from producers today, it's different. I prefer sampling off of vinyl just because you get a certain sound. Now, I know there are plugins that can do like vinyl sound effects and give you that type of sound, but here's the thing. When I sample a record that was made in the 70s, that sound is being played by a musician in the 70s, using all vintage 70s equipment, probably on 70s drugs. I mean, you know, you're getting the whole feel and soul of that time era. Yes, there are people now who can play in that style, but it's just something you cannot duplicate right now using the equipment versus what they were using then. So there's different ways to sample, different methods. Some people sample phrases or loops and put that into their music. For me, I sample records as sound sources. So usually when I sample something, I turn it into something totally different. I mean, I can take a string sound and make it into like a bell sound, but it sounds like a bell, but it kind of doesn't. So it's like this weird type of sound. So I really use it as a sound source, or lack of a better word, like an oscillator, to create my own sounds and give it something different. Sometimes I use it as is and just kind of chop it up a little bit to give it something different, but generally speaking, I don't sample like a bass phrase or a drum loop and then just use the drums on there. I don't usually use it like that. I usually turn it into something totally different. So my favorite records to sample on, I mean, jazz is always a great choice, but surprisingly, old Christmas music, they generally have very good bells and strings, and then vocal sounds that they make. Just sometimes it's real funny and you can't really make out what it is. So plus it's easy to find. People will sell you an old Christmas record for dirt cheap, so I generally gravitate towards that. So yeah, I mainly use the MPC to sample just because that's a very easy machine to chop your samples and make it to you want it to. I can use the Korg Kronos, but they make it very cumbersome, especially when it comes to managing your files. I have a lot of files in the Korg Kronos, and when you introduce something new, you have to go through all of those samples just to get to the new ones that you just sample, where the MPC is right there ready available. So speaking of the MPC, I got a new sound pack for the Tubesynth. I know since the 2.10 Tubesynth is probably not getting much play with your beats, but I had to make the sound pack to give Tubesynth some love. Here's some samples of what they sound like. That's it. When you download that pack, man, let me hear the beats. I love to hear what y'all do with it. But until next time, peace.